Hello and welcome to Community Forum. My name is Joseph Feaster. I'm the host of the program. And while I haven't done a lot of programs here in 2023, I'm back with an exciting program, a learning opportunity for all of you here in order to be able to make your lives better. And I have two individuals on with me today, Jeff Morris and Kenyatta Turner from DreamSmart. We're going to have a conversation which I'm sure is going to blow your mind and that you're going to take advantage of this opportunity as I have done. So welcome to Community Forum, Jeff and Kenyatta.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Joseph. Happy to be here as well. Can't wait to get
Well, I'm glad to have you guys. I mean, having been introduced to you by the great Bill Pankey, as far as this particular program, I am really, really excited about today because I've been a participant. And but before we talk about me, I love talking about me. But in terms of where I'm gonna shift the program here, and I want to learn more about DreamSmart, and learn about each of you. So I'm always doing ladies first, Jeff. So you're gonna have to wait. I'm gonna have
Your mama raised you
Kenyatta.
properly. Your mama raised you properly, Joe.
I'm gonna have Kenyatta introduce herself, and then Jeff, then you to tell them. Let's tell my audience here a little bit about each of you and your relationship to DreamSmart. Kenyatta?
Absolutely. Thank you, Joseph. I appreciate you having us here. And of course, happy to share. So with DreamSmart, we have a group of co-founders, and I'm one of them. DreamSmart, Jeff is another. And we have a great time helping people get access to behavioral resources to help them grow personally and professionally. Myself, at DreamSmart, I hold the role as Chief Marketing Officer. I like to say Chief Behavioral Marketing Officer because everything we do is based around behavior. We're practitioners of what we preach. But I also do a lot of the coaching and training with the services. And I also use the services in my own businesses as well. So we have a lot of fun. We love helping people and excited to have you learn what you've learned about what it is that we do and be able to share us with your audience. So thanks for having me here. Jeff?
Everybody, Jeff Morris here. I am the CEO and the executive chairman for DreamSmart Behavior Solutions. And I, too, am excited, Joe, to be with you today, as well as with Kenyatta. As you know, Kenyatta is a bad lady, B-A-A-A-A-D lady. She is the behavioral superpowers diva. There's no one else in the world that has that title. Just Kenyatta. A little bit about DreamSmart. We are a behavioral consulting firm. We're a world-class coaching firm as well. We are the world's only Black-owned behavioral science firm. Now, before my audience just misunderstands me, that doesn't mean that we only do business with African Americans or Black people. It just means that our founding vision was founded by someone that looks like the folks on the call. We do have a team that's comprised of people who are from different socioeconomic backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, race. We do practice behavioral diversity and diversity in all of its forms. So happy to be here with you today, Joseph.
Well, I'm excited, when I met your whole team. But I have you and Kenyatta here with me today. But when I met the whole team, I just was emboldened. I was excited. I wanted to jump in with both feet, and I have. I want the folks on this viewing this program to get the same type of excitement. So I want either one of you, what is DreamSmart? What does DreamSmart do? What are you trying to accomplish when one says, okay, I want to know more about DreamSmart. I want to know what it offers. What would you say to that individual? What is DreamSmart?
I would say just to begin, there's complexities and simplicities to what we do. And I'm going to talk about the simplicities first. The simplicities are, if you're listening to this and you're familiar with personality assessments, maybe you've taken one before, a DISC or Myers-Briggs or Colby or Enneagram, I can go on and on. So we live under that umbrella of psychometric assessments like those, but we like to say this ain't that. We're different than those, even though we're under the same umbrella. So that's a simplistic way to describe what we do, is that we offer behavioral assessments that people can take. Takes about 10 minutes to take the exercise, 46 questions. And then there are results that come out of that information. So at a base level, that's what we do. However, we take that same tool and instrument and we use it across all different platforms or behavioral dimensions, I like to call them. So depending on where you are in your life, maybe you just want to know who you are and you just take the exercise yourself. That's great. We're going to give you a lot of insight into who you are and why you are. However, if you're have a company or you want to learn more about other people in your life or business partners or any kind of situation where people are involved, behavior lives as well. So we also take that same information and we do coaching, training, mentoring with the same tool, but everything always starts with that tool. So that's where the complexity comes in, is all the different ways the information can be used and how we coach, teach, train, and mentor it, and teach others to do it. But the simplistic part is it is a behavioral assessment that starts with someone like yourself who's listening, taking an exercise and getting the results and having a conversation with us. That's the short answer.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff, would you want to expand on that a bit?
Sure. All human beings are on a journey of self-discovery, whether we know it or not, right? We're all looking for either confirmation of who we are, affirmation of who we are, or new revelations about who we are and who we could become. And our tool is the starting place for doing that. Would you agree, Joe, when you took this profile?
Absolutely.
It was some people say it's a confirmation, some people say it's an affirmation, some people say it's a revelation, and some people say it's all three, right, for what we want to be able to do. So we are the starting place and the genesis for anyone that wants to go on a journey of deep self-discovery. Look yourself in the mirror and say, how do I become my best self? This is the number one way to do it, in our opinion, because we do start with the essence of behavior, things that don't change after about the age of 18. And we'll get into some of that in a little bit later in our conversation, Joseph.
Well, this is exciting. And Kenyatta, you raised up a number of things because I always wanted to know about me, because I want to know about me in terms of my different interactions politically, socially, and, educationally, business-wise. So I always wanted to do it. So I've had the Myers-Briggs, I've had the DISC system. I've had all of those, and as I told Jeff one time, I said, "Yeah, I'm way on Attila the Hun on some of these things. I'm like an ESTJ, So I'm on the far reaches of this, and maybe what you did in terms of my behavioral profile here, which I know you're going to introduce to the entire world right in a short while, Jeff, will give an indication as you talk about me as the individual. And like I said, this was definitely an affirmation for me. So I don't mind you exposing me in this particular manner. I'll give you full carte blanche in order to do so, because awesome. I'm not afraid of who I am. Right. So therefore, I put my trust in your hands. So
yeah. Joseph, we're always really excited too, because we want people to understand that there's no good or bad. This is a place where we can start to say, who am I right now? Right? Am I best self? And if you're not your best self, where do you need to go to be your best self? But this journey that we take people on is life-changing. We actually call it transformational in the lives of the people that we're actually working with, because that's the words that they use. That's not the words that we choose to use. Kenyatta, would you like to add anything to that?
I would. Joseph, you said interesting. You said we can put the profile up there and show the world, who you are, and you're not, afraid of that. But here's what's interesting. When it comes to the data on the report, the people who know you already know this about you. They just may not have ever seen it on a piece of paper like what we do, right? So it's really interesting. The data really just shows a person the truth. And then we let them do what they want to with it. And when we let them do that, that's when the transformation comes in. They really realize, wow, this is actually me. I can quantify this. Here's the objective science behind what I already knew and what people know you already know. They may not say it to you, but they already know it.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Kenyatta. While I'll allow y'all to say it, I may not allow them to say it if they don't come correct. So right, I know that. So
it's fun.
But you're absolutely correct. But so Jeff, why don't you bring up the profile and walk folks through the life of Joseph Feaster? Who he is.
Let's bring it up on the screen right now, and I'll have Kenyatta do the honors, and she'll talk the audience through your profile. Kenyatta, is this good? This good for you? You want it larger?
Yeah, no, I can see it. Yes.
Beautiful.
So, for those of you who are taking a look at this for the first time, looking at this report, this is a one-page report. We call it the Work Talent Report. And this is for Joseph. As you can see, he's got a unique style as a stylish thinker is what the actual style is called. And there's 10 behavioral identities, basically. And his is called a stylish thinker. I am an influencer. Jeff is a reflective thinker. But before we go through the profile, if you could scroll to the bottom for me, Jeff. Bottom right. I want to be able to show them the little circle over there. Yeah. So you can see here on the bottom left-hand corner, there are 10 behavioral identities that go around in this circle. Okay. And you can see that the stylish thinker is highlighted there because that is Joe's right there. And so you can see me at the top of the wheel there as an influencer, top right under fast paced. And then over here on the bottom left, right next to the stylish thinker is the reflective thinker. So the one thing that's important to understand about a report like this is that everyone in the world falls under one of these 10 identities. And the beautiful part about that and what makes it so intriguing is that even if they fall under one of the 10, they are still unique at such a rate because of all of the data that we collect. So for instance, Joseph might be sitting at the stylish thinker table with all the other stylish thinkers in the world, but they're in different chairs at that table, at different seats because of all the data that you see on the right-hand side of the screen. So if you can go ahead and back that up a little bit, Jeff. So that's the first part of the profile. And it says here, if you know Joe, then you know that he is someone who interacts with others, gets the most out of any situation, just from that first paragraph right there at the top, making decisions that require precision, technical information, and the latest trends that will fully inform them that they're getting the best solution or outcome available. And if you know Joe, then you already know that about him. It says that they also like to test ideas and discussions with other people and will be strong in following through on their goals, but may need some help in developing their personal vision, right? This is a high-level version of a stylish thinker. Now, as you take a look at the top talents there, he's outgoing. He's also cooperative. But if you want to know how to get the best out of him, how to keep him in his zone of genius and his happy place, then it says right there how others can connect and manage his talents, remember his need for fun and excitement, invest time in building the relationship. He definitely wants to know who's involved, who's going to be at the meeting. He wants that information in advance, by the way. And he wants the environment to be relaxed, and he wants to collaborate and provide input. This is important because as you take a look at this, and Joe, I would like to ask you, these 5 bullet points right here, would you agree with those? Would you say, yes, this will keep me in my happy place, my zone of genius, if people interacted with me this way?
Absolutely, Kenyatta. And interesting enough, just prior to this call, I just want to set the scenario just to show folks how this works. Here at my law firm, we're going out to do it. It's a great place here at Dane Torpy. We're going out. We're deploying all of our staff out into the neighborhoods, the different parts of Boston. We're going to go out, take pictures. They group teams together. Someone else made up the teams, put us in the various neighborhoods of the city. We're going to go out and take pictures, and then we're going to come back. We may do a collage. We're going to talk about what it is, et cetera. So I happened to run into one of the individuals who's on my team. I was going to contact anyhow because I said, hey, I want to be able to know exactly where we're going to go in this area called South Boston, which is the Irish neighborhood of Boston. And in turn, I want to be able to, I know the area. I wanted to know the spots. I happened to run into him. I'm up there dictating, yeah, we're going to go see this. We want to see this. We want to see this. I want to get with Rachel. I said, yes, we need to get together and pick out. So I said, you pick out the 10 and then we'll talk. So all of the points that are talked about here, I demonstrated this morning because I wanted to know in advance who's on the team. I want to create the environment. I'm willing to collaborate. I didn't say these are the 10 spots that we're going to go to. I said, let's talk. Why don't you put together the 10 spots? Then we talk about it now. You know, I may agree with the 10 or not, and I'm going to try to be persuasive, but at least I'm being collaborative. So I wanted to give an illustration of Feaster in action related to exactly this stylish thinker designation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's a perfect example. I like you said, you're like, I intend to be persuasive, but at least I'm still being collaborative. That's, you know.
Is that considered an oxymoron or no?
I know, you know what I mean? Well, like a stylish thinker is going to do that. Here's what's so interesting about that. A stylish thinker is the person who loves to engage and have people be involved with that process. But the other side is they want what they want and they want it how they want it. At the same time. So they have a way of being able to make that happen, you know, in a very unique way as the stylish thinker. But again, those two top talents, you being outgoing and collaborative, those are your superpowers. I mean, literally, you are someone who enjoys new ideas, expressive, and uses a networking approach, right? Cooperative, flexible, and fits in well. These are the things that make you extremely unique, and that literally is your superpower. But however, we know that at times superpowers can have kryptonite as well. So while that is your power on one spectrum, there's times when you may need to pull back a little bit, be a little more reserved in a moment where someone else might need to be able to step forward, right? Being able to be aware of that and self-coach in the moment, that's the power. That is literally the power, and having that recognition. So thank you for sharing that story. And so those of you who are taking a look at the rest of the report, this is very simple. Remember, I mentioned earlier that there's many data points that are measured. When you take this exercise, there's over 4,500 different data points that we measure from this 46 questions. It's pretty phenomenal. With that, we have high-level reports, and this is one of them that kind of gives all the data, puts it together on one sheet. So at a glance, you can kind of see where you fit in these particular areas. If you look at the radio buttons, you may read the words next to them and feel like they're two sides of a coin. And I do want you to think about them that way as you look at them. Like results is one side, relationships is another. Daring is one side, careful is another, and so on and so forth. So the easiest way to identify what these numbers mean is if you think of 1 out of 100, 50 would be the mid-range. And the mid-range between these two sides is what we would call balanced. So between 50 and 70, actually, from a scientific standpoint, is a balanced profile in one of these little radio buttons. And the balance is really powerful because what that means is that a person who has scores between 50 and 70, and as you can see, many of Joseph's scores are that, means that he can swing between two sides of these coins, meaning he can do one or the other without a lot of stress or anxiety, and flexing is what we call it, to be on the other side. Why that's so important is that when he's working with someone who is on one side or the other, he can meet them where they're at without a lot of, pressure on his side to behaviorally fall into that space. That's powerful, extremely powerful. And what's also powerful is areas where you have really high scores in a particular area, like above 70 or even closer to 90 and 100. That's also powerful because that talent is so intensified in that person that they are wired for that. And that is literally what you can expect from them about 91% of the time. And as you can see, his systematic versus flexible is at a 73. He's very systematic, very planned, likes things to be organized, and likes to know what those outcomes are. Doesn't mean he can't respond on the spot, but he prefer to have a plan in place initially and execute that plan. Now, here's something to think about if you're watching this and you're wondering, I wonder where my scores might be. Well, one, I encourage you to take the exercise and find out. We can give you information about that. But you also might be wondering, what is it like when someone has really high scores, like I talked about balance, but someone like myself who doesn't have any scores less than 82 on my report. So what that means is that at that high rate, that's who I am. I'm going to show up that way 91% of the time. But a challenge can come when the scores are so high that it's difficult to understand the perspective of someone on the other side. Now, Joseph doesn't have this with many of his factors here. He's got balance in results versus relationships. It says right there, he can keep a balance between getting the job done and supporting the people, right? The mission and the people. He also is daring, but he's a little more careful than daring. So spirit of adventure, not a high risk taker. Abstract versus concrete, that's really a measurement of a creativity scale and how you go about being creative. Are you the person that sees things inside the box, or is there no box? Well, with Joseph, as you can see, he does both, right? He can be imaginative, but he's also practical. And then we talked about the systematic versus flexible. That's really measuring structure and organization and how they process information and want things to be laid out. And he is, again, more structured approach. work approach than someone like myself, who's very spontaneous. And then the last one is promoting versus operating. It's really a measurement of the people factor, which talks a lot about how you are extremely, you can be expressive and outgoing, or are you more reserved and you need to, you can hang out with people and do the thing, but you also need to re-energize by yourself. And as you can see with the 53, he's kind of both in that regard. He is outgoing, but he has no problem working behind the scenes and operating by himself and taking care of what needs to happen. He doesn't need to be around a lot of people. So again, balance is huge. Joseph, this profile with the balance is like, you're a smooth operator.
Yes, he is.
Smooth. Kenyatta, can you repeat that? Just that last part.
Yo, I'm gonna urbanize a bit for you. You're a smooth brother. That's what this is. We can break it down and make it urban. Make it
a smooth brother. Because look, I mean, you can see. So everyone, watch out for Joseph. You're gonna see him coming, but you may not see him coming. That's the thing. You're gonna see him coming because he's gonna be sharp, and you're gonna be like, "Hey," you know what I mean? But again, like he mentioned earlier, he wants to be persuasive, but also collaborative, right? You know what I'm saying? So he finds the balance in there. So for those of you listening, that's a quick rundown of his profile. Yeah, we put it all out there. Again, people who know you already know those things about you. Now they have something to really kind of like sink their teeth into about why you show up the way that you do about 91% of the time. And the last thing I'll mention is if you're listening, you keep hearing me say 91% of the time. Why am I saying that? Well, the information from the data that's collected from Joseph's report, it is scientifically validated, okay? And over the last 30 years of research, scientifically validated in 125 countries and in 11 different languages. This is not soft science, okay? It's not a parlor trick or anything like that, even though it almost seems like it because we literally nailed him, okay, with that. However, this important thing to know is that because of that research, we know that this has a 91% predictability rate. 91%, which is not 100, but it's 91%. So what about the 9%? People always ask me that question. They're like, well, what about the 9? Well, the 9 is not predictable. Here's why. Humans are complex. Okay. It's not like we have a crystal ball here. However, we do know that 9% of the time is when you, Joseph, and everyone else will make a decision to do something that's outside of what you normally would do, right? We call that learned behavior. So in the moment, you may make a different decision that may be outside of your behavioral makeup, but that doesn't mean you've changed. That means you made a decision to do something different in the moment, but you are who you are at your core.
Well, you know what, I want to shift more globally and take it from me. Thank you so much for that, because I've learned in the world which I operate, sometimes you have to take your personal self to best explain to others the circumstances and find if this was a bad, what I know Jeff said there's no bad report, but if I thought it was bad, we wouldn't even be talking about my report. So I certainly was pleased with the outcome because it is me. I mean, I am who I am. What you see is what you get is actually true. But I want to broaden it because I really want persons. We talked about it from the standpoint of person get their individual behavioral report, if you will. I want to take it beyond it, and maybe this is the shifting point, Jeff. I want to take it to, okay, I sit in many places. I sit in government. I sit in nonprofit organizations where I chair. I sit, in a number of different places where I say, wow, if the individuals sitting in these rooms and these boardrooms in these places knew these things, I can see it and say, well, in my trying to be cooperative and in terms of trying to be persuasive, I want to know if there is a reflective thinker over here. I want to know if there is a person over here who is your behavioral style, Kenyatta. I want to know that because that's going to help me in how I might approach them. I'm going to use, because as you said, I'm going to be a thinker. So Jeff, can we expand this to be able to? I want someone to be able to say, wow, I think I can use that in my organization.
Sure.
Oh, wow, I think I want to know something about my people.
Sure.
How do we get there?
So before we get there, I want you to ask me a question first. And the question is, well, this seems like I've done things like this before. Like, what makes this different? Can you ask me that question, Joseph? What makes this different?
Jeff, I've done things, you've done things, or I've done things like this before. What makes this different?
As Kenyatta said, we'll keep it as simple as possible. It's complex, but we're going to keep it simple, right? And we do have a saying that we do say that this ain't that. That's not proper English, right? It's probably like a double negative for all the English majors on the call, right? But here's why we do say that. It's because if you're familiar with an MBTI, they give you a factor report, right? But we're going to give you that experience, right? Because we're measuring many factors. If you're familiar with the Strengths Finders, right? One of the world's most popular psychometric tools. And we believe that, yes, strengths are important, but we also believe that kryptonite is also important because those are the things that can usually derail us, right? If we overplay our superpower. If you're familiar with the DISC, the DISC, we do those things too, and we take the client on a deeper journey. If you're a fan of predictive index, let's say, we're not predicting, we're revealing what's already locked inside you that's daring to get out, right? Both the strength and the struggle. So we have multiple use cases, and we call ourselves the Ginsu knife. I don't know if the audience remembers the Ginsu knife where it could cut through the can, it could cut through the frozen meat, it could cut through all of those things. That's what this profile is. That's what this ecosystem of profiles does. So we're going to shift from the individual, Joe, per your request, to we're going to go out to the global level, and we're going to talk as an organization. Then we'll talk community. Then we'll talk, how we take families in it in a relationship environment too. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to go to our webpage. And there's a graphic on our webpage. By the way, everybody, if you're looking for a way to get some more information about DreamSmart, you can go there by getting to www.dreamsmartbehavioralsolutions.com, and you can find a way. You'll be able to see where you can take your Discover Your Behavior Superpowers profile. Again, www.dreamsmartbehavioralsolutions.com. There's a button there that says Discover Your Behavioral Superpowers. We'll get an email once you do complete that, and we'll give you an opportunity to either have some self-coaching to get yourself coached. But Joseph, I want you to look at this. This is our enterprise edition of what we do. It says DreamSmart's omni-channel presence to optimize business performance. Now, you mentioned multiple disciplines. You mentioned government entities, you mentioned businesses, you mentioned multiple different disciplines that this may be applicable to. And so let's look at this entirety of this organizational operation chart here. If you're looking to recruit people, wouldn't it make sense, Joe, to have a way to recruit people based on the need for talent, right? And then hire people based on that talent. And then after you hire them and you begin to hire them, now you want to see if they're a good fit behaviorally. You can see if they're a good fit for the team, they're a good fit for the leader, if they're a good fit for the organization. And this profile gives you some very specific data points that allows you to answer that question. Kenyatta, I'll let you continue to talk about the coaching, training, and development piece, because that's what you do for DreamSmart.
Absolutely. So with the coaching, training, development, again, if you are in a position and you're responsible for training your team or providing opportunities for them to learn and grow, you want to know your audience. You want to know how they learn and how they communicate and be able to present the information to them in such a way where they actually can receive it. This isn't one size fits all. It's one size fits them. It's a very different approach when you have this type of information. Like you mentioned, the things you learned about, we talked about Joseph, he's a very specific person who learns and processes information in a very specific way. And if you knew that about him, you would have an opportunity in a training or development situation to be able to give him exactly what he needs to pick up what you're putting down. So that's a powerful part of the development piece. And you can also develop people in those behavioral talents that they have, very specific, by giving them opportunities to do what they're built to do anyway, and base all your training and development around that specifically. Think about your organization now. Ask yourself, are you actually doing that with your team, or are you giving them a one size fits all type of approach?
So when we think about compensation and promotion, Joseph, you've been around the block a time or two. How often, when we're thinking about performance and we may be trying to promote someone, maybe we say this person is not like me, so therefore I may not give them proper access, or I may not grade them, in an unbiased way, because often the way we approach things seems to be the best way, right? This often comes into promotion. It could come into compensation. What if there's a way for you to take away your behavioral biases? I'm a reflective thinker, so I'm going to work very well with you. But if Kenyatta was my direct report, right, her outgoing influencer style, fast paced, doesn't sit well with me. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm not grading her or giving her the proper recognition because she's different. We're going to take that away, the behavioral bias, and say she's wired differently to perform, but she still can perform as long as I give her what she needs. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can you talk a little bit about that, our behavioral diversity, when we chat about that with organizations?
Absolutely. So, as an organization, there's lots of aspects of diversity to consider, right? Life experiences, age, race, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender. It goes on and on and on. Social and economic status, their viewpoint on things. A lot of these things can be discussed and measured and even seen with the eye. But many of them are hard to relate to when you don't understand exactly who a person actually is and why they're wired the way they are, that makes some of the decisions, or to make some of the decisions that they do at the workplace and at home. But one thing that people can't really measure, or at least not easily without a tool like ours, is behavioral diversity. The exact thing that Jeff just mentioned. I'm an outgoing, fast-paced influencer. I'm going to show up a certain way most of the time. Jeff is a reflective thinker. He's very planned. He's very reserved, not like me. You don't want to have a team full of just me. Good luck with that. Really, there needs to be some other types of people on the team, not just who look like me, or not just about having people who look like me, but having people who think like me. You don't want to have just that. You want to have a mix of people within your organization, because again, you need to put the right people in the bus, but you need to have them in the right seat on the bus. So when it comes to understanding a person's behavioral makeup, helping them understand themselves and understand the behavioral biases that they already have, goes a long way to creating inclusivity. It goes a long way to creating equity, because now, again, you're giving the person not what they need, not what it might be perceived that they need. So we start everything that we do with organizations with this particular tool that we've spoken about before we have conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's important to help people understand who they are first, help teach them how to understand and love who they are. And ultimately, that helps them go a long way to being able to understand the differences in others and accept and celebrate those differences, and help navigate them as well, especially as a leader.
I just want to interject here. I'm always fascinated when I listen to either you or Jeff in terms of explain this, but I also want to put it in, and I'm throwing these little personal tidbits out to help our audience also understand. So I consistently use a track metaphor. I was a track and field guy, ran relays, and et cetera. So I always use it because my collaborative side says I want to work with the team. And I do want to know, if whichever leg I'm not running, I want to know that the other three legs on the relay, that they're going to be able to perform. So that means that, yes, you're going to come to practice, and we're going to practice our stick passing, and we're practice in our lanes, and we're going to do all the things we need to do. But you're absolutely correct, Kenyatta. At the end of the day, the determination, just like what my coach would do, says, well, you're going to run anchor, or you're going to run start, or you're going to run second leg. And I'm of the generation where they still had yards rather than meters, but I ran 880 relay. And so therefore, and largely in terms of the second leg, taking that baton from that starter, depending upon, because oftentimes they had a lead or sometimes they did not, but that second leg was critical as we moved along in terms of third leg and fourth leg. So my sense of it is, maybe if I had a behavioral tool such as DreamSmart to be able to know exactly what was the thinking of my colleagues, my other three members on the team, would be helpful. In my role as a chairman of the board of the Urban League of Eastern Massachusetts, or my past presidency of the Boston branch NAACP, I've had some interesting dynamics in how I negotiated and navigated those relationships. And maybe having a Dream Smart behavioral tool would be beneficial to me now, and would have been beneficial to me then, to be able to know the behavioral makeup of the persons with whom I had to interact. So I raised the nonprofit because I know Jeff raised about the corporate, and you may have gone into that as well, but I'm very much entrenched in the nonprofit community, and hey, they got needs as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I want to interject real quick there. Oh, and by the way, I didn't run like a major track or anything. However, when I did in PE,
oh, goodness.
we had to run.
Really?
I was always the anchor. That was my spot. I was the anchor. I was fast, but I had asthma, so I couldn't run long.
All right, good. Hey, sprinter.
So
all right, go you.
I would come in and
you go, girl.
I would come in and sprint and bring it home, and then pass out on the grass. So, but as far as organizations go, right, and I'm glad you mentioned that, like nonprofit organizations, for profit. So here's the scope of it. If it's an organization and there's leadership there and there's people there and there's projects and things that need to happen, it's so important to put the right people in those positions. And oftentimes organizations will make choices based on lots of different things, a resume, whose friend is their friend, all kinds of things. They promote people, for different reasons. And my background, I worked for 28 years, if I add it all up, running colleges. So that's definitely an organization, right? There were for-profit colleges. Universities and colleges have an interesting makeup. You've got the students and you've got the employees that are, there all the time together. A lot of different dynamics going on there. And you mentioned the word, maybe a tool like this would have been beneficial to you as you learn to navigate those relationships. And it's not a maybe, it's a yes, it would have been, because I know when I saw it, I wish I had it in all those schools that I worked at. I would have used this tool in every level of the organization, down from whoever the CEO was, down to the janitor, to, who the teachers, to the finance departments, to the marketing teams and the project managers. Everyone would have taken it. And we would have used it to build a massively behaviorally smart organization that would have had team productivity through the roof, employee engagement through the roof, and we would have made more money and had more client engagement. Because when things are in sync like that, there's nothing a company can't do. And when you think about communication, every company says that's something that they want to improve. But how? Well, we can help with that as well.
Joseph, can I share with you a team report really quickly? Just a real quick glance of a team report.
Yeah, and I just want to, I'm just doing time checks here, so we got about 15 minutes or so, and okay. I want to talk about. I want people to know how they can engage you. Yeah. What types of things you might be able to do for the organizations, and then of course to reiterate how they might be able to contact you.
Sure.
So I definitely want to have those covered in the remaining time.
No worries, Joe. We'll make sure we get to that piece. But imagine being able to have a tool like this where we can take not only one individual or two individuals, but we can take many individuals and provide a behavioral snapshot for an organization, both their strengths and their struggles, their relationship, their results bent, being able to walk a team through their what we call behavioral fingerprint, Joseph. Just like you have a fingerprint that makes you unique, every team has a behavioral fingerprint. And our job, your job as the owner or as the entrepreneur or whatever in the government entity, is to decode the human complexity and make it possible for people to be in the optimized role based on their talent. And this is a tool that does that. So if you buy the numbers and you're like me, you want to know, well, what does that look like? Well, think about a 23% profitability increase because you take this behavioral approach. Think about a 40% individual engagement, higher engagement by 40% because this individual now has more understanding of how they're wired to perform. So they come to work personally motivated every day. Think about if your team could be more productive by 70%, depending on where you're at in this whole thing here. This team report can do that because we will give you your specific behavioral fingerprint for your team, and every team needs this. This is a very detailed profile. It's 19 pages long. Can't go into it today, but would like to continue the rest of the conversation. But this team report is what we do really well. It's one of our strengths. Is optimizing teams, decoding that behavior, improving that communication, increasing bottom line profitability, and all the things that I mentioned as I was talking about the team report.
Okay, well, great stuff. I say, okay, I'm excited. In terms, I'm a raving fan. There's all these terminologies that are used, I'm sure, in the books that you have seen and read and probably produced. So I'm all of those sitting here as a person, and I'm talking about a person in the audience now because I'm already there. I'm talking about a person out saying, oh, wow, I think this sounds great. I think I want to be able to do it. Well, ultimately, one says, well, what's it going to cost me to do this? And granted, and I want you to speak in terms of ranges. I want folks to really know, because I want, as they look at their pocketbook, their wallet, look at their budgets, I want them to be able to say, oh yeah, well, if this is going to be the benefit that I'm going to derive, because there's a cost benefit analysis in all of this that we do. There may be things that you may want, but you have to determine whether your pocketbook can stand it. So the reality is, I now want to shift to the business model, which says, okay, this is something that I think could work for me individually, can work for my organization, whether profit or nonprofit, can work in terms of smaller groups. And I think, Jeff, you had shown something before that looked diagrammatically on earlier, something that was green. I don't know if you talk about the 2-person thing. You may want to go into that, before. I don't know, but I do want to get to this place. I want folks that can walk away from this saying, yeah, I can afford to do this because the benefit analysis, the benefit that I'm going to derive from this is going to outweigh what I may expend to do it. So I want to bounce that to the two of you.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in here for a moment. That's a very great question. For those of you who are listening right now, you're thinking that, right? What does it cost? Why is this worth it? So one thing I want you to think about first, and remember that there is a cost to do it and there's a cost not to do it. So if you think about your organization now and you think about where you are and where you want to go, ask yourself the question, can I afford to not pay attention to do the things from my organization that are going to help me take it where I want to go? And that's a question only, you can answer there, right? If you are a business owner, you are part of an organization, you know that there are costs to coaching, developing, training, all those things have to go into place. You also want to consider, where are you now with your team's productivity? Are you doing things that can increase the productivity by 70%? And if you are, what are they? Okay. And if you aren't, and you go, wait a minute, increase my team's productivity by 70%, what would that look like for your organization if you could do that? There's a cost to make that happen, and there's a cost if you don't do anything to make that happen. So consider that, right? When we work with organizations, I would recommend anyone, first step is to take their own behavioral exercise. And you can literally go to our website right now, dreamsmartbehavioralsolutions.com, and there's a big orange button that says Discover My Behavioral Superpowers. Go ahead and do that. The cost of that is $150. That's not a high cost for you to be able to get that type of transformation by just taking the report or just doing the exercise. However, when it comes to your team, what we would love to do is really have a conversation with you about what it is that you're looking for. We can figure out what it is that you want your team to accomplish, what kind of results you're expecting. And then we can have a conversation about what that cost would be. But it's not even so much as a cost as it is an investment, because if you ultimately adopt something like this within your organization and you can increase your team productivity by 70%, employee engagement by 43%, and client engagement by 23%, what do you think is going to happen? Ask yourself, is the cost worth it at that point, right? To be able to have that time of coaching and development and training for your organization. So those are just some of my thoughts about that. But I'm glad you mentioned that, Joseph, because that is important, really to discuss that, what is the investment for your team and does it make sense for you? You can determine that once you have a conversation with us. I think this is our contact information.
I'm going to push this a little bit harder, because yes, I think that's, and I think the better terminology is investment rather than cost. So I'm glad that you made that shift to that, because I think that more defines exactly what I'm talking about. Because that's how my mind thinks in terms of fine. You pay for something because you expect a benefit, and so that's an investment
Yeah.
in what you want to do. If you can, I'm going to just give an organization. We have an organization. We have a nonprofit organization that exists of 20 employees, which are about 4 different departments. And they want to look at how they might be able to better provide the services. And it could be a health organization. It could be, I'm in one dealing with mental health. I'm chairing the reparations task force for the city of Boston. I may need to get a behavioral thing right there to get it done. But nonetheless, is your pricing determined on the size of the organization, the type of organization? I want folks to be able to look at it and say, yeah, this is the range, and maybe you can't do it as it's not a one size fits all. But if you can give any type of scoping by way of ranges, I think that would be helpful for you to let folks know that now, either you or Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I can go, Jeff, or you can jump in, but I have an answer. So one of the costs that's going to be associated with working with a company is going to be based on number of people, because every person needs an assessment. So that's one thing to consider, right? So you've got the cost of the actual program. Maybe the coaching program is a 2-hour uncovering session that we might do for a client, and there's going to be a cost associated with that 2-hour session, and that could be few $1,000s for the session to have the coach come and spend that time with your team. However, how big is the team? Is it 2 people? Is it 40 people? There's going to be a cost per based on how many people need to actually take the assessment, right? So we'll break that down for an organization, depending, between this number and this number, this will be the cost of the assessment. If you've got 500 people, then obviously the cost is going to be able to be negotiated for that particular client. So there is a cost per assessment that a company should consider. And then there's a cost of, if you're interested in having a 2-hour workshop, it's going to be a few $1,000s for an engagement like that. However, we recommend, and what we typically do with clients is we work with them on a longer term basis, because one thing to come in and do the workshop, it's another thing to come in and help the organization weave this within their organization, right? For true transformational culture. It's hard to give a range really on what that would be, Joseph, because it really depends on the length of the engagement and how many touch points they want with us. But they're going to need to find a budget to be able to support this type of coaching and development for their organization.
Jeff, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll just add, like Kenyatta said, there is the initial engagement, and we do have a range of engagements. It can be a 2-hour facilitation. It could be a 1-day facilitation where we take an entire organization through the courage to lead, the commitment to lead, clarity, setting expectations, goals with clear behavioral objectives, how to connect with yourself, and then how to navigate the differences of others. In other words, how to have a collaborative team approach to this. And then how do you close out? We call that our Dream Smart team process. And we can do that in 2 hours, but that's a high level overview. If we had a day, but we could go throughout, we call them the high C's, there's 7. Now we can really start to uncover and unpack, how you build your Dream Smart team. And then some organizations has bought us in for 2 8-hour facilitated sessions where we take a real deep dive into many elements of a Dream Smart team. And from there, we could also go into a 90-day engagement to include more onboarding, individual coaching, all the way out to a 6-month engagement, if that's what the leader in the organization thinks is going to be best for them as they look to improve individual engagement, the team performance, as they look at maybe having us be a part of their entire ecosystem, from hiring to recruiting, coaching, development, all the things that we talked about in that one graphic. So it's not a one size fits all, but we do have some general ranges of what pricing could be. But we really prefer to have someone talk to us so we can give them a customized proposal.
Let me do 2 things, because I know, again, I'm going on the basis of my stylistic thinker approach to what information I want to know. So how long has Dream Smart been in existence? And I want you to give a sense of the type of clients that you have had over the course of your existence, so that if there's a entity out there that fits within that someone who you have provided the services for, they say, oh, then that could possibly work for me too. So
Sure. Kenyatta, why don't you start? I'm gonna find a graphic for Joseph, and I think that's going to really answer his question here about the type of clients that we've had.
Yeah, absolutely. So DreamSmart has been around for more than a decade, and we have rebranded ourselves into a company called DreamSmart Behavioral Solutions. It used to be DreamSmart Academy. So if you happen to Google that, that may come up as well. But the last 4 years or so, we've been refining this behavioral science division of what we do and really fine tuning those particular offerings and the behavioral science and the assessments and focusing on that component. So it's been a minute. We didn't just, show up yesterday, right? This right here shows you some of the clients that we've worked with. And this is a very short list, but it's enough to give a sense of the breadth of the types of organizations that we've been able to go into and have them take the exact same exercise that Joseph has taken, done behavioral uncoverings with their teams, done one-on-one coaching with individuals, executive coaching, created hiring plans for organizations, DEI trainings for organizations, quarterly reviews with organizations who are using us on an ongoing basis. One of my more recent clients, we haven't thrown the logo up here for, is Intel, right? So obviously these are large organizations. They're different styles, from colleges to, fast food places like Chick-fil-A. One of the locations was using us for their coaching, for their leadership team. So it really, there aren't any limitations to the type of organization. So small or large, there's a place for this type of work with your organization and making it behaviorally smart. So hopefully that answers your question, Joseph, of the
type well, it does. I mean, we have the small and large corporations. We have educational institutions. We have nonprofits. Yep. And I know we've talked about it. We've talked about government as well. I mean, in terms of the governmental clients. So I just wanted folks to know the full range, so they don't think that it's just one narrow type of business, industry, entrepreneurship. It can be small business, large business. Basically, if I'm taking what I've read and what you have stated, this can help from individuals to millions. In terms of, if you have to interact with anybody but yourself, if you have to interact with anybody but yourself,
right,
this can be helpful in doing it. If you have anything in terms of a team, and I think I just knocked us off.
No, you're good.
I can hear.
Yeah, I think I just, I got so excited. I think I kicked the garbage can and fell on something. But I can see that in terms of technology brought me back. So, as we get these few closing minutes, because we have about 2 minutes left, I'm going to leave that to either of you in order to close it out. Just save me a minute because I want to close out the program. So if you have about a minute, as I say on TV, you got about, 90 seconds.
Right. I'll give my 30 seconds, Joseph. Okay. Anywhere where there's two or more people gathered. You've heard that statement before, right?
Amen. Coming straight.
Anywhere where there's two or more people gathered, there will be behavioral misalignment, communication misalignment, or money misalignment, or all three. So when we find high performance, two of those three things will be in alignment, or all three. And when we see subpar performance, those things will be out of alignment. One of those three, or all two of those three, but most likely all those three will be out of misalignment. We'll bring those things into alignment as we decode human complexity, improve communications, enhance relationships, and overall impact the organization. Kenyatta.
And I'm going to speak to you, the person who is listening to this right now. If you're watching this, I want you to pay very close attention. To know yourself and others, you must first sacrifice the illusion that you already do. So we talked a lot about there being two or more people involved, but I want you to think about just you. What do you know about yourself and what you're bringing to the table before you even think about what you're bringing to your team and your family and your organizations? It starts with you. So I recommend that you literally go and figure out what your behavioral superpower identity is. Go to our website, dreamsmartbehavioralsolutions.com, click that orange button and take the behavioral exercise yourself. We can talk about it all day, but I prefer to show you what it is that we're actually talking about. And then I think you'll have a really good understanding of who you are, but ultimately how we may be able to help you.
Yeah. Joseph,
well, in terms of
Joseph, we didn't get a chance for you to share some of your credentials, right? We know who you are, but Tell the audience a little bit about who you are, please, sir.
Well, in terms of five, I will do that in the next time that we tape this program, because I really want to focus upon you. You are the folks who are. It's important. I want them to know about Dream Smart. I want them to get on board and in terms of utilize it. I just can't thank you, Kenyatta, and you, Jeff, for doing this. I'm excited about the opportunities and the prospect. To my viewing audience, I want you to go to that website. I think you said is dreamsmartsolutions.com. Is that what you said?
Dreamsmartbehavioralsolutions.com.
All right, that's right. I wanted to make sure that we correctly stated once more again, Kenyatta, so they have it.
Dreamsmartbehavioralsolutions.com.
Click the orange button. Click the orange button that says Discover Your Behavioral Superpowers.
And start from there and then contact them directly. Once again, thank you so much, Kenyatta. Thank you so much, Jeff. We will be speaking again. This won't be the last time that we have an opportunity to do this, and I will be in touch very, very soon. Have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Honor,
Take
brother.
care. Bye-bye.